my mother kicked me out of my room that I paid for to give it to her best friend. I lost clients, and my business was collapsing. But when I moved out and left her without my rent, she called me ungrateful and exposed me on Facebook saying I abandoned her. I'm 23 years old. I work as a freelancer from home, or well, I used to work from home until like 3 weeks ago. And I need to tell this story, because basically my mom decided that her best friend and her kids were more important than me, her son who literally paid rent and helped with the bills. I know how that sounds. Like it sounds super dramatic, but seriously, when I say they kicked me out of my own room without even asking me, I'm not exaggerating one bit. Let me start from the beginning because otherwise it's not going to make sense. I have two younger siblings, twins, both 15 years old, a boy and a girl. I stayed living at home after finishing high school because, well, I was starting my freelance business and didn't have much money at first. But listen, it wasn't one of those cases where the son lives for free in the basement playing video games all day. I paid rent, like $400 a month, and helped with the internet and electricity bills because, obviously, my work uses quite a bit of power and bandwidth. My mom agreed to the arrangement because it worked for her, and I had my own space with all my work equipment set up, my computer, my monitors, my microphone for client calls, the whole thing. The room I used was the biggest one after my mom's, let's say like 13 by 16 feet, and it had a huge closet where I stored all my extra equipment. I had spent like 2 years setting up that space perfectly. You know, with the right lighting for video calls, the L-shaped desk I bought at IKEA and assembled myself, the cable organizers, everything. It was basically my office and my bedroom at the same time, and it worked perfectly for me because I could work late without bothering anyone and get up early when I had meetings with clients in different time zones. So there I was, working well, making my money, helping around the house, getting along more or less well with my mom and my siblings. We weren't the perfect family or anything, but we didn't have serious problems either. My mom worked in administration at a school and had her group of friends she'd go out with on weekends. One of those friends was Sarah, her best friend since college or something like that. They had known each other for like 20 years. I had known Sarah my whole life. She came to the house often. We celebrated Christmas together sometimes, that kind of thing. She had two kids, a boy around 8 and a girl like 10. I think, I'm not completely sure of the exact ages, but they were around there. Everything started like 4 months ago when Sarah was getting divorced from her husband. Apparently the guy was kind of controlling, and she finally decided to leave him, and my mom, being her best friend, obviously wanted to help her. One day my mom told me, "Hey Alex, Sarah's going to stay a few days in the guest room with the kids while she finds a place." The guest room was this small room we basically used to store things and had a single bed we almost never used. I said, "Sure, no problem. It's your house." And I seriously didn't mind. Like Sarah had always been nice to me, and I understood she was going through a difficult time. But the first few days, everything was fine. Sarah and the kids stayed in their room. She went out to look for apartments. The kids went to school. Everything normal. But after like a week, I started noticing that the kids were all over the house, which, well, they're kids. It's normal. The problem is they started going into my room when I wasn't there. At first, it was silly little things, like I'd find my headphones moved from their place or my desk chair in a different position. I mentioned to my mom to please tell the kids not to go into my room, and she told me not to exaggerate, that they were just curious kids. Like 2 more weeks went by, and Sarah was still there. It wasn't a few days anymore, you know. It was almost a month. But, well, getting divorced and finding a house isn't easy. I understood. The thing is, that one afternoon, I went out to meet with a client in person, something I don't do very often. But this particular client preferred face-to-face meetings. I was out for like 4 hours. When I got back, like around 6 in the evening, I entered the house and saw Sarah's kids running down the hallway toward where my room was. I thought, that's weird, and when I got to my room, I almost had a heart attack. The door was open and both kids were in there. Not playing or anything. No, they had moved everything. My desk was pushed against the wall, my monitors disconnected and stacked in a corner, my chair thrown on its side, and in the middle of the room, they had put an air mattress and were jumping on it. My cables, which I had organized super carefully, were all tangled on the floor. I stood in the doorway, unable to even speak for like 10 seconds. Then I went in and told them, "Hey, what are you doing? This is my room." The kids looked at me like I was the weird one for being there. I went to find my mom, who was in the kitchen with Sarah having coffee. I told them, "What's going on? Why did the kids move all my stuff?" My mom didn't even seem surprised. She told me, "Oh, Alex, they needed more space. There's 3 people in that tiny little room. Don't be selfish." I said, "Mom, that's my room. I pay rent. I have all my work equipment there. They can't just move everything." And that's when Sarah jumped in and told me in that condescending mom voice, "It's just temporary, honey. The kids need a place where they can be comfortable. You understand." I said, "No, I don't understand. And this isn't your place to decide. It's my room." My mom gave me that look that lets you know you're in trouble and told me, "This is my house, and I decide what happens here." I went to my room, or well, what was left of my room, and started trying to arrange my things again. The kids were still there, watching videos on an iPad at full volume. I asked them to please leave because I needed to work, and the older boy told me, "My mom says this is our room now." I felt my blood boiling, but I wasn't going to argue with kids, so I went to my mom again. The conversation was basically her telling me I was being dramatic, that Sarah was going to find a place soon, that I could work at the kitchen table or in the living room, that it wasn't that big a deal. I told her, "Mom, I have video call meetings. I need privacy. I need my equipment. I literally can't do my work from the kitchen." She told me to adapt. That family helps each other in difficult times. That night, I tried to sleep on the living room couch. My twin siblings asked me what was up, and I explained. My sister told me it seemed unfair, but my brother said Sarah's kids were young and needed space. Whatever. I had a horrible night on the couch. The next day, I had an important meeting with a client at 9 a.m. I went to my room at 8:30 a.m. to get ready, and the door was locked. I knocked and Sarah opened it, still in pajamas, and told me the kids were sleeping, to please not make noise. I explained. I had a work meeting in 30 minutes and needed my computer. She told me to come back later. I couldn't believe it. I had to take that meeting from my phone, sitting in my car in the driveway, and it looked and sounded horrible. The client clearly noticed something was wrong. I lost that project, by the way. They later sent me an email saying they had decided to work with someone else. When I confronted my mom about this, she told me I was being ridiculous, that I could have asked Sarah for permission to go into the room for a bit. She answered that if I didn't like it, I could leave. That phrase, hurt me more than I expected. But it also made me realize something, and it was that my mom seriously didn't see me as a tenant who paid to be there. She saw me as her son she could control however she wanted. And the truth is, in that moment I felt used because I had been helping financially for months, and now that her friend needed something, my contributions meant nothing. The next few days were a nightmare. Basically, I didn't have constant access to my own room. Sarah had set a schedule, literally. A schedule on the door of when I could go in to get my things. From 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Outside those hours, the door was locked. My clients started noticing my work was suffering. Deliveries were delayed, video calls kept being from my car or from coffee shops, and I was spending money on cafes just to have a place to work. One night, at 11 p.m., I got an urgent email from a client who needed a file I had saved on my desktop computer in my room. I knocked on the door. Sarah came out and told me no, that the kids were sleeping and she wasn't going to let me in. I explained it was a work emergency. She closed the door in my face. The next day I lost that client too. That's when I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I sat down to do the math and realized that, with what I was paying in rent to my mom, plus what I was spending on cafes and gas going other places to work, I could rent my own room somewhere else. I looked for options and found a room in a shared house 20 minutes away, bigger than the one I had, with a private bathroom and everything, for $500 a month. It was a bit more expensive, but worth every penny if it meant having my own space again. I went to my mom and told her, "Look, I found another place. I'm moving out at the end of this month." I thought maybe she'd be sad or at least surprised, But you know what? She said. How convenient for you. You only think about yourself. I said, Mom, I've been sleeping on the couch for weeks. I can't work. I'm losing clients. You literally kicked me out of my room that I pay for. She said, I was being dramatic, that Sarah was almost finding a place, that I just needed to hold on a little longer. I said, how much longer is a little longer? And she couldn't answer. So I told her, I've already signed the contract for the other place. I'm moving in 2 weeks. That was a Wednesday. On Thursday, I went directly to Sarah and told her, hey, I need you guys to pack up my stuff because I'm moving out soon. She looked at me like I had told her to die. She said, but we're just getting settled here. I said, Sarah, with all due respect, this was never your room. It was mine, and I need to get all my stuff out. It was super awkward, but I needed to say it. The next 2 weeks were horrible. My mom stopped talking to me, like literally wouldn't speak to me. My siblings were confused because my mom had told them I was abandoning the family. Sarah looked at me with hate every time we crossed paths, but I had already made the decision. On moving day, I called 3 friends of mine to help me. One of them, who loves drama, started recording everything with his phone. Said, just in case something happened, it would be documented. My mom wasn't there when we started taking things out. She had supposedly gone out, but Sarah was there with the kids. When we started taking apart my desk and packing my equipment, Sarah told me I was being very noisy and the kids were trying to watch TV. One of my friends told her, with all due respect, ma'am, he's collecting his things from his room that he paid for. We took everything out, the monitors, the computer, my bed, my desk, my clothes, everything. I left the room completely empty, except for the kids' air mattress and their things. My friend recorded the whole process, including the moment when I left the keys to my room door on the kitchen table. In the video, you can hear Sarah in the background saying, we were rude, and how dare I do this. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. We went to my new place, and my friends helped me set everything up again. The room was bigger, had better natural lighting, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe. That night I slept in my own bed, in my own room, with the door closed and knowing no one was going to come in without permission. It was the best sleep I'd had in a long time. 2 days later, my mom sent me a text message, the first one in 2 weeks. It said I owed her rent for the rest of the month, because technically, I hadn't completed my full month. I answered no. That I had moved out specifically because they had taken away the room I was paying for, and if anything, she should owe me a proportional refund. She sent me like 15 messages in a row telling me I was ungrateful. That after everything she had done for me, how could I treat her like this? I responded with a very simple message. Mom, I paid rent, contributed to the bills, and you decided your friend was more important. You can't be mad at me for setting boundaries. But what really bothered me, what still makes my blood boil, was that a few days later, my sister sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post my mom had made. The post said something like, it's sad when children only think of themselves and abandon their family when they need them most. Some never learn the meaning of sacrifice and family, and it had like 50 comments from her friends saying things like, oh, how sad, your kids don't value you, you're such a good mother and they don't appreciate it. Obviously, she didn't mention my name, but everyone knew who she was talking about. She also didn't mention that I paid rent, that they had kicked me out of my room, that I had lost jobs because of her decision. Nothing. She just painted me as the selfish son who left. I was tempted to comment on that post with the whole truth, but my friends told me it wasn't worth it. That the people who mattered knew the truth, and that getting into that drama on social media would only make me look bad too. They were right, but it still hurt to see my mom manipulating the narrative like that. It's been 3 weeks since I moved out. My business is recovering. I already got back one of the clients I had lost and got 2 new ones. My new room is perfect for working. I have all my space set up again, even better than before. My siblings come visit me sometimes. They like my new place and understand why I had to leave. My sister told me Sarah finally found an apartment and is moving out next month, and that my mom is still mad at me but doesn't talk about it anymore. I haven't talked to my mom since those text messages. I know eventually we're going to have to talk because, well, she's my mom. but honestly, right now, I'm not ready. I'm still processing the fact that she chose her friend over me, that my financial contributions meant nothing when it was convenient for her, and that afterwards she tried to make me look like the bad guy on social media. Part of me misses the relationship we had before, but another part of me realizes that maybe it was never as good as I thought, or at least not as respectful of my autonomy as an adult. Some relatives have sent me messages saying I should be more understanding, that mothers always want to help their friends, that it's normal to have conflicts when you live together. But none of them really know what happened. They only know my mom's version. The ones who do know the whole story, my friends who helped me move, tell me I did the right thing, that no one should accept being kicked out of the space they're paying for, no matter if it's your mom or whoever. The truth is, I don't know if I did everything right. Sometimes I wonder if I should have held on a bit longer, if I should have been more patient, more understanding. But then I remember how I felt those weeks. The frustration of not being able to work, the humiliation of having to ask permission to enter my own room, the helplessness of watching my income go down the drain because I couldn't function normally. And then I realized that no, that setting boundaries isn't being selfish, it's being responsible with yourself. Yesterday, one of my new clients asked me why I had changed my work location because apparently you could tell my setup looked better and more professional on video calls. I simply told him I had moved to a space that worked better for my business. I didn't go into details, didn't talk about the family drama, and it felt good, like it felt good to reduce all that mess to a simple, practical business decision. Because at the end of the day, that's what it was. I made a practical decision to move to a place where I could work properly. The fact that it was also an emotional decision to set boundaries with my mom is secondary, I guess. I don't know what's going to happen with my relationship with my mom long term. Maybe in a few months things will calm down and we can talk civilly. Maybe she'll apologize for how she handled everything, though honestly, I doubt it. Or maybe this is the beginning of a permanent distance between us, and I'll have to accept that some family relationships simply can't survive when there's lack of respect and broken boundaries. What I do know is that right now, at this moment, I'm better than I was a month ago. I have my space, I have my work functioning well again, and I have my peace of mind. And after all the stress and anxiety of those horrible weeks, that's enough for now, I think.